Okay, we continue now with the high risk for divorce. So, we're coming up to the next type of relationship. There was a movie years ago, it's called The King and I. This one is the narcissist and I, or should I call it the narcissist and the shadow. That is, again, a very common type of relationship when one of the partners in this relationship is a narcissist. It's very difficult to have not only a healthy relationship over a long period of time. Why? Because the narcissist has a hard time showing any kind of apathy to the other side. He's always so focused and concentrated on himself to the point that he doesn't pay attention, he or she or it, to what is happening around them. And at a certain point, the other side is going to get tired of feeling left out and being not important. And that is, again, something you could see very much so in the dating process. It's regarding dating, one should know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to make you see everything that is wrong with the other person before you get married. There are people who will tell you, I want this, and this. I want to live in this place. I don't want to work. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. You should set assure. I mean, be confident that that's exactly what's going to happen. There are such manipulators that at the end what will happen is they'll tell you, okay, you want to live where you want to live, fine, not a problem. They're going to turn the world upside down to get what they want. Those manipulators are self-centered people, narcissists. They all care about themselves. And they're going to turn you into the vehicle to get what they want. You're no more than just an instrument to get what they want. You're just a decoration. For them, you're no more like a badge who they were, okay, now I'm married, I got that, and that's my husband, or that's my wife, and you're no more than that. You're just a facade, you're a decoration. You're a shadow. You are not important. It's all about me. I'm not going to cook, I'm not going to clean, I'm not going to do this. All I'm going to do is sit home and pop the babies up, and that's going to be it. You're going to worry about everything else. And it's going to be where I'm going to tell you it's going to be. There are many people who are okay like this. And they continue their lives to no end in that fashion. They're simply going to hand out their selves to the other person. They don't exist anymore. There's nothing of there to say. Even if they're going to throw like a little fit, eventually you'll come back again to the other person to get what they want. You are no more than a shadow. You got to evaluate all these things very, very carefully. That's why you are dating. Many people go on a date, they think, oh, I'm going out with a girl, oh, this is terrific, I'm going out with a guy, or I get a couple of dinners, who cares? You got to ask those questions, you got to open your eyes in the process of dating. What is this person about? How are they conducting? What are they saying to you? What they're not saying to you? You are not there when you date people to listen to your own self-talking or your own self-persuasion. You're there to examine the relationship, what kind of a relationship you're going to have with this person. And many people fail. Many people fail. And when a person tells you, yeah, I want the guy to learn. I want him to learn, but for a limited amount of time. Means they don't want him to learn. Oh, I want him to learn. Terrific. What are you willing to do for him learning? Are you going to go get a job? You want a learner. You want a learner. Terrific. Wonderful. More power to you. How many did you? 4? Terrific. That took you a long time, by the way. You have to reduce the time. Now, let's say, for example, they tell you, I want a learner. Terrific. You want a learner? God bless you, my darling. God bless you, my child. What are you willing to do for that learner? Are you going to go get a job? Oh, no, I'm not working. I'm not going to be working. Why? Because I can't work, and so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. All the what's going to happen? So they're going to get married, because the guy thinks he's going to be learning. What did the missus do? 2 weeks after the wedding, she's pregnant. I can't work, I'm pregnant. In other words, the guy just turned himself into a shadow. It's his fault he closed his eyes when the light was on. All he was concentrating was turning the light off. That's too bad, buddy. That's too bad. You got to walk in with your eyes open. It's a very bad relationship to be in. I think out of all of them, the manipulator, that passive-aggressive person, is the worst person to be with. That passive-aggressive person is the worst person to be in, even worse than the one who's not willing to take responsibility for his or her actions. The worst. Stay away from people like this, like from fire. You want the person to be able to take responsibility, I understand, but you want the person to stop playing games. You don't play games. When it comes to marriage, it's not about playing games. When it comes to marriage, it's not about you as an individual. It's about you as a couple. What are you contributing for that? And it does not make a difference, how rich she is, how beautiful she is, or how desperate you are. I'll tell you the following. I'm sure you're going to not agree with this, but it's better to be alone than to be in a relationship like that, because that beats the purpose of being in a relationship altogether. So think about that. So now we're going to go to the next one. The next one is the forbidden word. What's the forbidden word? Avram, what's the forbidden word? Why are you smiling? Man, what's the forbidden word? Money. Money. Money is important. Money helps us get things. Many people, money is a central focal point of their lives. And there are couples who don't really talk about that for whatever reasons. They don't talk about money. They can speak about their wedding planning for hours. What kind of flowers they're going to have in the flower arrangement. Who they're going to invite, and the sitting arrangement, and the... Excuse me, I'm still sick. About all the other shtuyot, absolutely nonsense. But they're never going to talk about money. Okay, you want to get married? I want to get married. Good. Darling, how exactly are we going to do that? Are you assuming that your parents are going to pay for it? Her parents are going to pay for it? Who's going to be paying for it? Let's talk about money. Oh, I want a 2-bedroom apartment to rent. He just got married. What the heck do you need a 2-bedroom apartment for? For what? Well, if you have guests, so let them go to sleep on the floor. Or don't have guests. Like you really want to have guests. Really? You really want to have guests? When was the last time you invited anybody to your apartment to stay in? Or if the families come. They're not coming. But I want a 2-bedroom apartment. I am not going to live in a basement studio apartment. Well, why not? What's wrong with that? So they don't talk about money. They're not going to talk about they're not going to talk about anything about how to plan the future, the financial future. They're not going to talk about that. What they're going to work. How they're going to make a living. What is their lifestyle and which they are looking to live in their lives. A person might say, honey, I don't care if I'll be like Rabbi Akiva, I'll be pulling straw out of your hair. I'm okay with that, sleeping in a barn. I don't care if we live in a tent in Bryant Park, I don't know, whatever. And she says, heck no. I'm not living anywhere besides, Park Avenue in a brownstone. So, well, I guess there's nothing to talk about. Or you talk to a guy, she says, oh, she's a real Eshes Chayil. She doesn't look for much. She doesn't want for much. Okay, but she doesn't. Is she willing to live in a basement apartment? Oh, no. It's too hard for her to live in a basement apartment. Why? Because, okay. So how are we going to do that? You bring X amount of money, and I bring X amount of money. And that doesn't it. There's a gap between what you want and what you're capable of. So who's going to pay for it? Daddy's going to pay for it. Who are you marrying? You marrying her daddy or you marrying your daddy? Who's going to be paying for this? So they don't talk about that. And then they're becoming moochers. Oh, God forbid. I'm going to let my son live in a basement apartment? Yeah. When I got married, I didn't have, okay, we came here to America, but I had a house. Then I lived in Israel. But when we came here, after we got married, I didn't have a, patio room. Okay, so I lived with my in-laws. So I lived with my in-laws. I lived with my in-laws for 8 months. Was it easy? No, it wasn't easy. But that's all I could afford. Okay. Anything happened to me? Yeah, I became a better person. I learned how to deal with people. I learned how to be appreciative of what people do for me. And I became an appreciative of what I have, of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me. Nothing happened to me. I didn't come to my parents or her parents with demands. That's what we could afford. Live according to your means. You don't talk about this, I'm going to tell you this. You're going to have a problem. One of the biggest traps in a relationship is fighting about money, about economy, about money, and so on and so forth. Because eventually, you will have to talk about that. Why? Imagine your parents are helping you, they're paying your rent, and all of a sudden your parent says to you, listen, darling, you've been married now for a year. I've been paying your rent for a year. I cannot afford to pay this anymore. It's very nice that you're married. It's very nice that you're doing all those wonderful things. But one of the things of a married couple is to be able to support your own selves. I cannot do this anymore. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen? You're going to come to your wife and you're going to say, honey, listen, my parents cannot pay this anymore. In 2 months, they're going to stop paying us. And then she's going to stop fighting with you. Your parents are bad people or wicked people and so on. Never mind that they laid thousands of dollars throughout the year, but they're bad people. So what are you going to say? Oh, I'm not going to let my son do that. So you're going to keep on paying for it. And you're going to you make the problem even bigger. The more, listen, you need to help your kids as much as you can, but with a limit to that as well. They have to do something for it as well. What are they doing for it? Why is that? Because the more you are helping your kids without them doing anything for it, the bigger the hole in which you're putting your kids in. They become more and more dependent. They're not going to have any sense of responsibility. They're just going to pop the babies out. And who's going to be paying for this? You. And once you stop, you're going to be the bad guy. You're not helping them. You're not helping them. So if you want to help them, so make a wedding that is going to be less. Don't spend $150 a person for a wedding. Spend $50. Make a wedding in your backyard and take the rest of the money and give it to them to buy a house. I'll say, here, this is your money, take it, gesundheit, goodbye and good luck, don't forget the wiping, you guys are out of here. Thank you, Moshe Petaranu. But you're not doing that. And then because of you, your kids will divorce. Why? Because your son or your daughter were idiots, because they never talk about money. And you want to make sure that the money is never going to be an issue, so you pay them. And then all of a sudden you say, you can't, and that's the problem start. Don't be afraid to talk about money. Not only that, you must talk about money before you're married and while you're married. People should know where they're living. Say, honey, we can't afford this credit cards like this anymore. Let's live on a budget. Being on a budget means being responsible. If you are not responsible, don't get married. I just want to told you that years ago they did a survey in University of Kansas, and they were able to identify as the biggest indicator for a divorce in a relationship was arguments over money. So you got to talk about it. And you got to be aware who you are. You got to live according to your means. And if you can't afford it, so you can't afford it. So you can't afford a house in, I don't know where. So you get a smaller house, you live in a basement apartment, you live in a one-bedroom apartment. Nobody says you have to own a house. It doesn't written. I don't know, I didn't see any law anywhere that says that everybody got to own their own house. So you can live in a two-bedroom apartment and raise a beautiful family in a two-bedroom apartment. Put one bunk bed, another thing, and by the way, you don't need a living room. You can put beds in the living room. But who says you need a living room? Put a dining room table there, everybody eats, and then you can put a little, you can have 3-4 kids in a two-bedroom apartment. Nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, in Israel, they do more. And what happens to those kids? Nothing. They're not spoiled. Okay? And that's the mistake both that couples make and parents make on the couples. I want to talk about the last one. The last type of couples that are prone to a divorce is the drama queens. There are other ones, but I'm going to stop here because I had enough of this. The drama queens. The drama queens are people who are addicted to drama. The telenovelas, the soap opera. The people think that they live in a soap opera all their lives, right? They live into this imaginary affairs. They like the fights. They like the separation. I'm out of here. I'm closing the door. I'm going back. This whole, right? So at the beginning, it puts a little bit of an excitement in the relationship, right? You break up for a little bit, you go to her mother, you go to your mother, and then you come home and you kiss each other, you make tremendous fireworks. It's a yofi. It's good for another week, for another month, and then it goes down again. Drama all over again, and so on and so forth. That gives them a lot of life into their married life, but eventually people had enough of this. And eventually, at least one side wants to break away that cycle, and they say, you know what, enough is enough, I can't take this anymore. And then we break. I want a little bit more stability in my life. And that's a very bad thing. People love dramas. Especially now that you have Facebook and you know everything that everybody does, and he tweeted and she tweeted and this, that, and the other thing, blah, 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 this whole entire thing. You can do so, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. Right? You can go tell your friends everything your husband said to you, everything your wife told you, and you can tweet about it, and you can twat about it, and you can do whatever you want about it. However, I can tell you the following. Your relationship is not going to last long. Even if you had a fight with your wife or you had a fight with your husband, learn to deal with it. Speak about it. Stop arguing. There are people who always fight, and you know what they do? They just want to keep on fighting. And they start yelling, and they escalate. And I yell, and you yell, and nobody wants us. Nobody says, excuse me. This is leading us to a disaster. Let's stop 1 second. What exactly is your problem? What's the problem? I want to understand what the problem is. Now let me try. They don't want to solve the problem. Maybe we'll do some in the future, another segment about fighting and divorce and so on and so forth. But in terms of that, never run to your mother and say to her, complain about your wife, and never run to your mother and complain about your husband. You have a problem? Learn to deal with it. If you are starting to an argument, you need to understand that this is an indication that something is wrong. And if you really care about it, so stop. Don't yell. Sit down. Say, excuse me, what exactly is the problem? And if the other person just keeps on yelling, say, excuse me, when you're willing to talk, I'm going to come back and then we can talk. Until now, I understand you're upset, but please don't yell and let's talk about it. If there's a problem, let's talk about it. If your other spouse is not willing to do so, well, either you married an imbecile or you got a problem. In both cases, you have a problem. But that's basically it. Couples that fight, it usually ends up not good. People that lift their voices and they yell at each other, is no good. Usually would lead the person who feels frustrated into do very desperate things. And it used to be more men than women. In today's day and age, everybody is doing very desperate things. And Rabotai, all these things you would see before you were married. And the dating process, you will see how your marriage life will be. So when you are dating, don't fool yourself. Open your eyes, look very carefully, and examine. And if your relationship reaches one of those 9 different types of relationship you're ending, I will tell you the following. Very quickly, go to individual and couples therapy. Go seek a good therapist who will be able to analyze you and help you reach a certain solution or provide you with the proper tools to deal with the situation, especially if you have kids. Especially if you have kids. There's nothing wrong with going to therapy. Don't go to any kind of rabbi who does ongoing, everlasting lectures about shlom bayit and this, because they don't know what the heck they're saying. I'll tell you the following. As much as you're not going to go to some guy who knows a lot about medicine, is not a doctor, don't go to a person who is a family therapist and he is not. First of all, by law, he's not allowed to do so. Second, he's not qualified. Maybe he's qualified as a rabbi, he's not qualified as a therapist. There's nothing wrong with going to therapists. Nothing wrong. Rabbis are very intelligent people, but they're not always the right person for that problem. It's not a convenience store. You go to the rabbi for everything. The rabbi should tell you you should go seek therapy. And there's nothing wrong with seeking therapy. Nothing wrong with that. If you want to be a therapist, you could be a rabbi and be a therapist. It's not a problem. But you should go to school and you should get a license of how to deal with a situation like this. And if that doesn't work, there's nothing wrong with divorcing. However, you better do so before you have kids. So on that happy note, have a great day.